You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What comes next for the Houston Cougar basketball program is this week they play on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday in what's called the Charleston Classic. It's usually Classic, a handful of, I think this year there are 8 teams there. It's a fun, non-conference, not round robin, but 3-round tournament. You guaranteed 3 games at this place. And we know Houston opens with Towson. Houston ended up actually being one of the headliners in a lot of ways in this event. Houston opens with Towson. Towson's 2-1. They played one Power 5 team so far, and they lost to Colorado. Towson's currently 141st in KenPom. I will say, in looking at them, they play longer possessions statistically and analytically based on seconds spent with the ball and how many times they have to reset the shot clock. Right? They spend longer possessions than Stetson did, which could lead to, again, a slow start. Again, they're fairly normal size and not the same size advantage as Stetson would have had. I watched some of the Colorado games just over the weekend trying to find something to get ready for the week. And I love watching college basketball because I coach basketball and it's always good to steal stuff. Colorado was able to jump out on them early. I thought it was interesting. Houston's had trouble with that in all 3 of their games so far, but Colorado was able to kind of run them at the gym. Frankly, Colorado has Eddie Lampkin. I don't remember Eddie Lampkin from TCU. He was in the transfer portal. We talked about, does he want to come to Houston? He's from Houston, right? He's at Colorado now. They had no one that could match up with that guy. And so they were able to exploit that and jump out ahead early, and Towson never really recovered. To me, the athlete Houston has for that is Jamal Shead. Jamal Shead has been kind of limiting his minutes thus far. You heard Kelvin Sampson in the postgame on Monday that he wants to kind of limit minutes for all the guys, kind of have an extended March run. He felt like they ran out of gas last year. But Jamal Shead at point guard is a tough cover. I could also see Houston using some of their high motor guys like Tugler or whatever to be kind of that advantage. But whatever the case may be, Houston jumps out early in this one. It should be an easy game. The most common set they ran in Colorado, from what I could tell, was a very simple Spain pick and roll. Spain meaning you screen the screener. So you run a simple high pick and roll from your center and point guard, and then your power forward or small forward comes up and screens the roll man as they're rolling to the basket and creates confusion for the defense on who switches where and who's on first, kind of stuff. It also typically helps if the screener, the second screener, is a shooter, because then they can pop on. If the entire thing collapses in the rim, you can kick it out for a jump shot, right? I've always assumed it was called Spain pick and roll because the Gasol brothers ran this so well in the mid-aughts Olympics. But in basketball nerdism digressions, that's the most common set I could see them running. I will say, as far as we talk about the different lineups that Houston runs, the easiest thing to do against the Spain pick and rolls is switch a bunch of stuff. And we talked about the switchability in a couple of those lineups that Houston offers. Being an intense defensive team helps on a lot of that, folks. And so I could see Houston coming out and doing that. The guys they put in that screen are a pair of guys named Charles Thompson, who's a more traditional 6'8" big, and Tyler Tejada, who's a 6'7" big who can shoot it a little bit. They're the guys involved in that Spain pick and roll action, with Dylan Williamson being their ball handler, going downhill, attacking off of it. He's a very normal point guard, traditional point guard, not a high-flying scorer point guard, from what I can tell. Again, Tejada, the big, can shoot a little bit popping off the Spain pick and roll. They're both longer. I didn't realize they were listed at 6'8" and 6'7". They looked bigger than that on screen, and so I would imagine that it attributes to length, a little bit shoulder size, stuff like that. Houston should be able to handle business there, and if they handle business there, they get the winner of Utah and Wake Forest. Utah is ranked higher in most analytical things. Thus far, Utah has played Eastern Washington and UC Riverside, so not a whole lot to take away from that yet. I'm sure we'll dive into that as we figure out when we play them. Whereas Wake Forest played Alonzo small school in North Carolina, and then played Georgia. They lost a close one to Georgia on the road last Friday night. And that's actually probably one we can dive some more into get a little bit more takeaways from that. I'll probably have that each of those kind of scouting reports in my back pocket once we find out on Thursday night which one we play. Houston plays really late on Thursday, but they will know who they play, win or lose, because the way the bracket works, if the two winners between the Utah Wake Forest game will play the winner of the Wake Forest Utah game will play the winner of the Towson Houston game. The loser of the Wake Forest Utah game will play the loser of the Towson Houston game, right? So we will know who we play definitively by the end, and we're going to play one of those two teams. I have to say that the kind of fun matchup in this is actually what could theoretically happen in a consolation or in a final game. You can play like an LSU. You could get to see, St. John's and Rick Pitino. There's a bunch of different options on the other side of the bracket that could be really fun to play as well. All in all, it's a ton of great experience going into Big 12 play and conference play later this year. A good early test for the Houston Cougars later this week. And I think that those lineups we saw them roll out against teams like Stetson will be really, really important to success in that tournament. Now, we got a lot of stuff to talk about this week. We got Charleston Classic. We got Dana Holgerson in the football program take on Oklahoma State in the final home football game of the year. Bowl eligibility is still possible, folks. They got to win both games remaining, but it is still a possibility. Oklahoma State has lost to Southern Alabama and UCF. They've also beaten some really good teams. So who knows who we see on Saturday. The inverse of that is that Houston plays Central Florida the week after, and it's hard to tell what they get Central Florida either, right? So fun football stuff to talk about as well, and as we wrap up that regular season and are hoping for a postseason of some sort. All the things going on there, all the things happening with Cougar football, basketball programs are all happening here at Locked On Cougs, your daily spot for all things Houston Cougars. So make sure you subscribe down below. And for a second listen today, as I'm talking about basketball today, I'm going to recommend we have a podcast, Locked On College Basketball, all things college basketball. Andy Knights do a great job with that one. It's relatively new. I think it's just over a year old. So make sure you go check that out for your second listen if you're a basketball person. You made it this far, you got to be a basketball person, right? Got to be. Thank you all again so much. Locked On Cougs, the primary Locked On podcast. That means your team, our Cougs, every day. Go Cougs.